Hey guys, this is Leo here from Dean Winchester. So yeah, wow, 300th episode, big milestone. Congrats to all of us. Congrats to cast and crew. I am proud of us, and I believe in us. Not to sound too cheesy, but I do believe in us to go forward for another 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 minimum seasons more. That is my hope. That's what I believe in going forward. And I just watched the ending again of 300th episode, and that was freaking amazing once again. It's a type of scene that's so good that it gets you every time. Kind of like the scene from the last episode was I Believe in Us, Sam and Dean scene. That got me and still gets me every time I watch it. That ending goodbye scene with John saying goodbye to the boys and to Mary. Heartbreaking. I'm so proud of you boys. Another proud line right there that gets you. There you go. And amazing. JDM has his presence, and he's a great actor, so he brings so much to every single scene he's in. He changes everything, and I'm so glad they could bring him back even temporarily for like a few scenes in a special 300th episode. I wish to bring him back more regularly, like season 1. He wasn't like, in most of the scenes or episodes in season 1, his role was kind of a cameo still, but it had, still had a lot of weight when he does show up. Obviously, you want the show to focus on just the boys, even though it's straight from that recently, unfortunately. They need to bring it back to them, but back then, Kripke era, they cared so much on keeping that dynamic focused on the boys as it should be. That is why season 1 to 5 will always be the best seasons, because that's where the focus were on the boys, plus better writing and all of that, but it's mainly the focus on the brothers. So, John, I wish they'd bring him back in the same capacity he was in the early seasons, because JDM is a great actor and he really gets you. Like, he had 2 days of filming, guys, and see all what he did with it. Just pure gold. And that ending scene when he tells Sam to do it after he says goodbye, to crush the pearl. So the whole time shift thing stops and John goes back to his time, 2003. So the moment Sam reluctantly crushes a pearl to, start the process, Dean kind of freaks out. Like when he hears loud noise of the crushing the pearl, like literally his hopes and dreams get crushed, metaphorically and physically in this case. And we see this glow on John as he disappears when all the events are undone when this happens. And it reminded me when John comes out of hell, gates of hell, in season 2 finale to help the boys kill Yellow Eyes, and he goes presumably to heaven. We don't know exactly where he went, but that's what was implied from the glow when he disappears, his ghost disappears. This reminded me of that at the end of this episode. So to further explain that ending of 300th episode, a lot of people were wondering in the comments, asking what does the ending mean when John goes back at the end, goes back into baby and remembers a dream. Well, simply what happens is he goes back to his time they plucked him from, 2003, and he remembers those events at least to a very distant degree, as if it was a dream. And when he calls young Dean back then in 2003 and tells him, I had a dream, and Dean asks him, was it a bad dream, good dream? He's like, it was a good dream. And he reminisces about that great beautiful memory of seeing his future family, and he sees Mary back, which when you think about it is really touching. That back all the way back in 2003, after he has a fight with Sam and he goes on his own, and before 2005 when the show started he was still hunting with Dean at the time. They added a new element here, is that at the time John have seen his kids in the future and learned a lot of things that he can barely remember, and he knows most likely it's not real, but he does remember it as a dream at least. So this was a very nice time travel little touch they did there. So that is what happens at the end, guys, for a lot of people who are wondering what happened. John remembered what happened as a dream, and he's not sure if it was really a dream, but that's what he remembers, right? Kind of reminded me of the season 6 episode was Sinking of Titanic by Balthazar, when the times are corrected and Balthazar goes back and resinks the Titanic, and the boys are back to normal timeline, and they cannot remember exactly what happened, but they remember it semi like a dream. It's very similar to that. So they repeated that element of time travel where the person's time is back to normal, and they don't exactly remember everything, but they remember some things, but it's mostly like a hazy dream. So they repeated that theme in this episode. So yeah, this was an emotional roller coaster of the ending, and let me go back a little bit to when John actually does come back through a wish by Dean the Pearl. He didn't actually vocalize his wish to have John back. He kind of like, he thought that his wish would be, his heart's desire would be getting Michael out of his head, but what he really wanted is John back and having a family dinner and all of that. He wanted that since he was 4, like he tells Sam. So he gets John back, and it was dark in the bunker, and John can't tell his boys, so he fights them off as if there were some intruders or enemies or something, and he beats their asses, which is very cool to see, which was, reminded me of the scene in the pilot, was the introduction of adult Dean with Sam when he beats Sam, but Sam beats him, and they have this scene in the dark of Sam's apartment. Very iconic scene, and they kind of repeat that or parallels that in this scene, which if you see my video about this scene, I added that on purpose. The parallel was the pilot episode with the boys fighting, to kind of make that parallel between that, which I'm pretty sure the writers would have intended that, and I don't think it was a coincidence anyway, but that's what I see it as a parallel to that opening scene in the pilot, a beautiful parallel for that matter. So John beats his boys down, and that's how he comes back, and he's like, what's going on? And Dean is like, what year is it right now? Because he notices that John is oblivious to what's happening. And he tells him it's 2003, so they brought back 2003 version, not 2005 version when the show started, which I found a little bit interesting, and I read a little article by Andrew Zeb earlier, interview with him. He was asked, I believe by TV Line, if I'm not mistaken, why they chose to bring 2003 John, not 2005. And the idea, he says, why they chose an earlier version is because they didn't want to know everything that happened after, and he sort of was having closure with the boys before he died anyway. So they wanted a more raw version of John before any of the stuff that happened after killing Yellow Eyes and all of that. They want him to be like fresh after having the fight with Sam, and they want him, I guess, to have closure all over again with the boys, with that version of him, rather than the version that kind of already had closure with him in 2005 and beyond before he died. Because what I'm thinking is, a lot of people say, oh, it's good to bring John back to have closure with Sam and Dean and all of that, but I already seen him have closure with the boys before he died, even in the vampire episode when he had the talk with Sam, and he had several talks with Dean, especially before he died, when he sacrificed his life for Dean to go to hell for Dean, selling his soul to Yellow Eyes and giving him the colt in exchange to getting Dean back from essentially the dead. He was between life and death at the moment after that accident in season 1 when a demon hit him with a big truck. So a lot of people who hate on John kind of conveniently forget that John did that, literally sacrificed his life and went to hell permanently, essentially, to save Dean's life. He managed to escape later when the boys opened the gates of hell, but he didn't know that. He didn't know he could escape. When he sacrificed his life and sold his soul to Yellow Eyes to go to hell, that was forever him, that was it. Imagine choosing to go to hell forever, eternal torture, to save your son's life. So how can he be a terrible father after doing that? People forget that or conveniently ignore it. That's just stupid in my opinion, to be honest. Yeah, you can say he did a lot of bad things in your opinion, at least. I don't think he did a lot of bad things. He wasn't a perfect father, but he did the best he could with what he had. His wife died burned on a ceiling one day out of nowhere. Yeah, that would traumatize someone for life. There you go. So again, people ignore that who criticize and hate on John. I believe this episode was a big opportunity for the showrunners and writers to kind of remedy the whole bad things they've been saying about John in the latest seasons, because John wasn't that bad in the early seasons. I remember vividly he wasn't. All the bad stuff seems to have came later. The newer writers kind of demonized him in the stories about him being like supposedly an abusive father and all of that BS, which I've never seen in the early seasons. So they kind of retconned that and added it later on in the newer seasons after Kripke left. I'll be pretty sure he's not very happy about that. I would like to see him talk about it and open up about it. But anyways, the current showrunners and writers finally kind of fixed their mistakes they did in the latest seasons, demonizing John, by bringing him back to fix that and have a second closure, if you will, with the boys, because I believe he already had his closure before he died with the boys in season 2, in season 1 and in season 2. in season 2 before he died. And when he came back at the end of season 2 to help the boys kill Yellow Eyes, he didn't say any words, but the scene was still very touching, that it gets you. That's how powerful those actors are, especially the JDM. No words, no dialogue, but just his facial expressions and, you know, putting his hands on Dean's shoulder and, you know, pointing to Sam with his face, like saying goodbye, essentially. That was his closure, that was his goodbye. Because Sam in this episode, in the 30th episode, tells him that, Dad, I don't remember all those bad things you're saying sorry for. What I remember is the good things you did for us, trying to protect us. And what I remember is me not being able to say goodbye to you before you died, which is so touching once again. So that's why they brought 2003 John, because they didn't want that part to be there. They wanted John before he said goodbye to the boys in season 2. Which is, I guess, turned out to be a good idea after all. Because they kept that raw emotion of like pretty much oblivious John to what happened after 2003. So the boys can have a fresh closure with them. So yeah, John being back again was great, guys. I really enjoyed it. Was more than I actually expected based on hearing that it's only 2 days of filming. They accomplished a lot in those 2 days, and it wasn't like a rushed acting or anything. It was very, very good acting, and it got us. Like, every single scene had weight, with GDM in it, and had emotions. And Jared again killed it once again with his conversation with John, telling him, "I'm not mad at you, Dad, and I'm sorry too." Because Sam kind of went off on John several times in early seasons, wasn't very nice to him really. So he also apologized to him for everything, and he told him, there's no hard feelings, I'm just sorry I couldn't say goodbye. And all I remember when I remember you is the good times. I remember the good things you did for us, trying to protect us, raising us to be hunters, to protect the world and protect ourselves and all of that. So I loved that dialogue between Sam and John. And we also get a conversation between John and Dean. John once again says sorry to Dean, that he didn't mean to drag them into it. And actually, if you remember, like I do, season 1, he didn't want the boys to have anything to do with his fight with Yellow Eyes. They insisted on fighting with him. So it's not his fault either. He's just saying sorry to be like, you know, to erase the BS has been said about him as about being supposedly an abusive father in recent seasons. Because GDM felt hurt by that, because he didn't like that he's been demonized in recent seasons. He really wanted to come back to correct that. That's the only reason he keeps saying sorry, not because he really did anything bad. Because I remember he didn't want the boys to come with him to hunt Yellow Eyes to have revenge for Mary. They insisted, so he didn't drag them into it. They insisted to be with him. They told him as he can't fight him unless they're together as a family. And I remember that very good. And yeah, it's not John's fault he brought them into the fight. It's not John's fault that, you know, Sam felt bad about him for wanting to protect himself and to fight the good fight to help save other people from what happened to them, essentially, to protect other people, saving people, hunting things, a family business, right? So yeah, a lot of things John is demonized for is really not that bad, or even bad at all, in my opinion, based on what I watched in early seasons in Kripke era. But in either case, John keeps apologizing to them in this episode, and Sam tells him it's all good, Dad. I mean, I'm not even mad at you, essentially. And Dean tells him the same thing when he tells him, I'm sorry, Dean, for dragging you into this. Yeah, so Dean doesn't have, you know, really bad feelings about it, and John tells him, I'm proud of you and all of that. And again, another touching scene, and we get to see Dean kind of like have his own like reflection moment about their lives and closure when he talks to Sam. And when Sam tells him, I really feel bad about like ending this time ripple thing by sending John back, and look at him happy with Mom and all that after they have the family dinner. And Dean kind of surprised me when he says that he kind of not very sad about sending John back, because he's proud of what they went through, their life, you know, the boys' life and all of that, and he doesn't want to change it. And he's too old to change it and all of that. Kind of felt cold from Dean, especially considering he's the one who really loved John even more than Sam in this case, because he's always been like the loyal soldier follower of John. He always been looking for John and emotional towards John, all of that. Sam wasn't that emotional towards him, especially in early seasons. So surprised me, kind of cold attitude from Dean towards John when he is like, oh, well, I guess we can send him back now, because I don't want to change anything, and I'm proud of what we become. So kind of took me off guard there, Dean's conversation with Sam. But I can't understand where he comes from. So anyway, this was a little off from Dean in my opinion still. So he cries his eyes out at the end when John's saying goodbye, regardless of that scene. So, you know, Dean's kind of fed up with the whole changes and all of that, and he's not as emotional as he used to anyway, back in the day when he was looking for John. And when John died and he felt guilty for his death, he's over it by now, essentially. That's what this scene shows us. And ironically, Sam is the one who kind of doesn't want to let go anymore after he has his second closure with John, if you will. When John says sorry and Sam says, well, I'm not even mad at you, Dad, and all of that. So the roles are kind of flipped in this case, with Dean being okay with John getting back, but Sam isn't. Yeah, and that leads to that big emotional goodbye at the end, which I already covered. So those are the big scenes I really want to focus on, the ending and John coming back and his closure with the boys and all of that. Really, that focus on the Winchesters is what makes the show great, and they proved it once again. There were other little distractions in the episode that weren't really big distractions, because they couldn't have JDM for the whole episode, so understand they had to fill it with other things, little funny Easter eggs and all of that, which I'm gonna talk a little bit about at the end of this video now. So I was kind of concerned that the Castiel and Zachariah bit would take too long and take the focus off the boys and all of that. I kind of wanted it to be just about the boys without anyone else. But I actually did enjoy that bit with bringing back essentially early season Zachariah and Cass, presumably the same ones from 2003 and not 2005 or 6 or whatever season that was. Season 4 and season 5, yeah, it was Zachariah and Cass. So I believe there weren't that advanced versions of them. There was still 2003 version of them along with John, so presumably it's the same timeline. So that would be an earlier version of Cass and Zach than the ones we saw on the series in season 4 and beyond. So yeah, we get the early oblivious soldier-like version of Cass who doesn't have any emotions, kind of like Terminator-like Castiel, who doesn't understand that reference and all of that, and he gets a funny name of Constantine. He gets called Constantine by Zach, which is pretty funny, and we see his wings again, powerful Castiel, which is an awesome throwback to Castiel's intro in season 4, which I added in my video about that too, an awesome parallel which I really loved, and he beats the hell out of Sam and Dean when they see him, and he doesn't have any remorse or anything. He wasn't even that bad in early seasons. He was robotic, but he kind of semi had a conscience. He wasn't like full-on Terminator in this, like a bad Terminator, because some Terminators like Arnold was good in Terminator 2, but he was more like Arnold in Terminator 1 when he was really an evil Terminator. So that was odd. Cass was that far gone that he didn't have any attachment to any human like conscience or morals or anything. Kept beating the boys without thinking or anything. And I love that Sam killed Zachariah once again, but they missed a golden opportunity to have Sam stab Zachariah in the face the same way Dean did it. They really missed that. I expected him to do it. It would have been the best and funniest funny throwback to that early season when Dean stabs Zach in the face and kills him. He just stabbed him in the chest or something, Sam did. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't go for that. Did they forget or something, or they just didn't care? They didn't think it was going to be a good idea. I believe it would have been much cooler if they had him do that. But anyway, this was a cool bit. It was old Cass and old Zach back, and you gotta think about how the series have drifted from the early seasons when Zach being brought back, Zachariah, being funny and very cool, because in early seasons I hated him completely, but I actually welcomed him back when I saw him in this episode, because he had this wit and charm of like villainy, like douchebaggy charm of early seasons, and reminded me of the good old days, right? And that tells you something. When you're happy with Zachariah being back, that's a big sign that the newer seasons are nowhere close to those early seasons, with exceptions of some awesome episodes and moments, of course. But yeah, when Zach makes episode great, in his little cameo, that tells you something about the state of recent seasons, guys. And old Cass being back kind of brought back that old feel again, which was awesome. So what else I liked about this episode? Little Easter eggs and funny moments. Sam holding a teddy bear, reminding me of a teddy bear doctor again. Very funny. Dean flirting with the older lady and her rejecting Sam earlier, trying to get information from her, but Dean walks in, you know, smooth, flirts with her, and she gives him the information he wants. Very, very funny, and reminded me of, again, that episode with Bella, when Sam flirts with the older lady to kind of distract her while the boy's trying to do something, to steal something, I think it was at the moment. And she didn't like Dean, but she liked Sam. In this case, it's flipped. The older lady likes Dean, but not Sam. Which, again, an awesome and funny moment and parallel with early seasons, which I really loved. Again, another great funny moment when a teenage girl steals Dean's car, and he freaks out, obviously, because Baby, come on, he loves Baby, and he freaks out if anyone touches her. So yeah, guys, it was an awesome episode, very touching, and I really, really loved it, and I'm proud of the fans, proud of us, proud of the cast and crew for what the big milestone we've reached so far. We're all in this together, and I'm very happy with the early renewal of season 15. Happy to have many more seasons of Supernatural, with the full focus being on the boys. And I hope next season brings that back even more so in all the episodes. So just full focus on the boys, because that's when Supernatural is great, when it's focused fully on its heroes, Sam and Dean. So I hope that's what's gonna happen going forward in the series. I'm looking forward to the next episode. It's gonna have a whole month till next episode at Big Hillatus, but understand we have a shorter season. The boys want to take some time off with their families and all of that, so, and the network has to kind of like restructure their shows, and you know, so they can last longer. They don't just end abruptly in like March or something. So that explains Big Hillatuses. So yeah, big wait, but I don't mind it because the boys need some breaks, so I respect that. And we have some time to recover from all the awesomeness we've been getting in the last 3 episodes, with the full focus on the boys and emotions and all of that. So yeah, next episode I have a dedicated video, you know, analyzing the next promo. Is gonna, you know, take the focus away again from the boys, and he's gonna put it back on Jack, unfortunately, but why you gotta do, right? They're just gonna keep doing that in the recent seasons. Until we tell them, guys, please just bring it back to the boys, and I keep telling them that in every video. I hope they listen and just bring it back to just the boys. But either way, watch my other video about next week's promo. Still looks exciting, the whole dark side of Jack being Lucifer's son and all of that. Is he gonna kill Rowena? Is he just gonna knock her out? Is he gonna come back again if he kills her like she did before? We don't know, gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, loved throughout this episode, guys. Emotional, funny, full focus on the boys, beautiful episode. They did a great job. Congrats on the best job you could have done for a 300th episode. Loved it. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode down below in the comments. Subscribe for more awesome Supernatural content. Till next time, as always, no chick flick moments.
You two. You take care of each other. We always do. It's good to see you, Dad. Dad. I am so proud of you boys. I love you both so much. I'm ready. Sammy? awesome.
Right. Right. Come on.
You know what? You're awesome.
Thanks. You too, I guess.